Hello friends, this is Worm, and we're back with the next installment of the the Fix It series. And I'll be honest with you, we haven't done an episode of this in a long time because I've kind of been dreading today's topic, and it's been a while since I've been considering what the heck we're gonna do to this particular archetype weapon. So I think I finally got it down, and we're gonna talk about heavy grenade launchers today. And we're gonna group, again, just like we did with the special ammo grenade launchers, we're gonna group all three of them in one video, because I think talking about each one in its own independent video, there's not gonna be a whole lot to talk about. But with that being said, of course, the three archetypes of heavy grenade launcher are adaptive frames, rapid fire frames, and compressed wave frames. So let's start with talking about adaptive grenade launchers. And really, y'all know what I'm gonna say about the adaptive frame, okay? And that is that I don't like that Bungie put this in the game. I don't like that this is an actual frame. It's just a reliable frame. That's its literal, you know, the definition of it is, hey, this is a pretty, it's an all-arounder. It's a jack of all trades. But when it comes to heavy grenade launchers, I think this is arguably like the worst, like the worst frame they could have used, right? And the reason why is because at least with primary ammo weapons, you know, things like auto rifles, for example, auto rifles, for example, there's multiple different archetypes. There's what, 4 different archetypes. With grenade launchers, there's only 3 archetypes. And really, if you really wanted to get like nitty gritty, there's only 2, because when it comes to compressed wave frames, there's only 2 in the game, and one of them you can't even get as of right now. But yeah, adaptive frames, they just feel really lazy, especially when it comes to heavy grenade launchers. So let's fix it and start by turning the adaptive frame into the aggressive frame grenade launcher. Now, aggressive frames across all other archetypes of weapons, what they have in common is they are hard hitting, right? They're aggressive frames, they're hard hitting. So when it comes to adaptive grenade launchers, changing them to the aggressive frame, there are 2 things that need to happen. Number 1, increasing the actual damage of the grenade. Now, I think that this is not something that we need to go overboard with. I think maybe a 10% buff to its damage, and even that might be a little bit too high. I think that would kind of be up to Bungie's tuning, but I'm going to start with saying about 10% damage increase. I also think that the blast radius needs to be increased by about probably like 7%, anywhere from 5 to 7%. Not a giant blast radius like a rocket launcher, but something fairly large and bigger than what it is now. Now, another thing that I also think should happen to the adaptive, which is now the aggressive frame grenade launcher, is to actually reduce the damage fall off when inside of that area of effect. So of course, the way grenade launchers worked, their impact, their detonation point is where the most damage is. That's where its damage is going to be the absolute highest. Then as you get further and further away from that, the damage drops. You know, it's lower, it gets lower and lower and lower. I think that with this archetype, with this new archetype of grenade launcher, that damage fall off should at minimum drop off to only 70% of its original damage. Okay, currently, if I'm right on the edge of where a grenade detonates, it'll deal like 10 damage, which is absolutely no damage at all. Like that's like what is that, like a 95% damage reduction? I think that at most that drop off point should be 30%. So what it means is this new, this new grenade launcher rework would make it so that the grenades hit really hard. They have a sizable blast radius, and within that blast radius, they are deadly. Okay, they might not one-shot kill in PvP, but they're gonna get you really injured if you're tagged by it. Now, once you're outside of its radius, its damage is basically just non-existent, I think would probably be the best bet. But again, when you're inside of that, you're taking a lot of damage. So we're not going to have a situation where players are going to take, you know, only 10% of the maximum damage. Like they're still going to take 70% of the maximum damage. And then outside of that 70%, outside the radius, then you're not going to take any damage. And I think this would be good because this would encourage players to use it for maybe a little bit of ad clear, but primarily on those higher health targets. You know, things like champions, maybe some majors, not bosses really. And one of the big concerns I have is with like bosses, you know, like how much damage would it do to bosses? You could even argue like reducing the fire rate just by a little bit, maybe down to 110 rounds per minute instead of 120 rounds per minute. I would kind of leave that up to Bungie, but yeah, that's where I would put adaptive frames. Make them their own archetype, right? Their own, their own, or not adaptive. Give them a more direct frame. you know, and I think aggressive would be the perfect thing to do. But moving on from there, let's talk about the compressed wave frame, because compressed wave frame is really one of the most unique archetypes in the game. There are only 2 compressed wave frame grenade launchers. One of them is Hullabaloo, which is from the Guardian games, which you can't even really get right now because Guardian games is not in effect. The other one is Hyperdimensional Trochoid, which is the Neomuna grenade launcher. And I'll be honest, the reason why these 2 grenade launchers are never ever really used is because there's a special ammo grenade launcher that does the same thing just as well. Okay, special ammo wave frames do the same thing that our our compressed wave frames do, and they don't have the constraints of being a heavy ammo weapon. You know, I could use Forbearance or I could use Hullabaloo. Which one am I going to go with? I'm going to go with Forbearance because the ammo economy is better. It saves my heavy for, you know, a DPS weapon like a rocket launcher or maybe a sword, something like that. So why would I opt to pick a compressed wave frame? So I think that there's a very, very simple fix that Bungie can do for this, and that is give compressed wave frames, and this is going to be a very unique change, but give compressed wave frames the ability to print their own ammo. This would be technically like the first ever ammo that can, or heavy weapon that can just regenerate its own ammo out of thin air. Okay, and and obviously we don't want to go too overboard with it. I think that, you know, maybe producing 1 grenade every 10 seconds is more than enough, but at the same time, like, it's going to allow players to have potentially infinite ammo, right? Like when you're using, say, something like Forbearance, like, you know, yes, you can spam it, but its reload is slow, it's taking care of enough ads. If you were to switch to Hullabaloo and do that, like, you're probably going to be killing at about the same rate, right? Even though technically the rate of fire is faster with Hullabaloo, and, you know, it deals more damage and stuff, wave is longer, stuff like that. You know, it's still not going to be dealing like you're not going to be firing like, you know, 7 grenades out. You're not going to be emptying your reserves in a matter of, you know, 1 minute or something like that. And if you do, that's insane, that's crazy, and props to you for being a one-of-a-kind individual. But I think that the ability to print its own ammo, 1 grenade over every, like, maybe 10-15 seconds would give it that leg up that special ammo weapons don't have. Because here's the thing about wave frames, whether it's special or heavy, they're going to kill in 1 shot against the targets that you're going to be using them against, right? So wave frames, you're wanting to use them against red bars. Same thing with the compressed wave frame. You're going to be wanting to use them against red bars. They're both going to 1-shot most red bars anyways. So why would I pick the heavy over the special? That's kind of, you know, that's kind of the thought behind it. So I think that giving it that leg up of, oh, hey, this can have, you know, yeah, it deals more damage, but really the draw to it is it can make its own ammo. So in a situation where, you know, you're going to be maybe famine, for example, is a modifier that's active, you can generate your own ammo slowly, but you can do it. I think that also reducing damage against bosses slightly for this archetype would go a long way, because again, the ability to regenerate ammo, especially on like longer raid encounters, can result in basically having infinite heavy. So just reducing the damage against bosses by about 25%, I think would be completely fine. Maybe even more than that, maybe like 30% would be a completely acceptable change to make that. But that's all I would really do to the compressed wave frame. I don't think that there's anything else that really needs to be done to it. I think that the reason why it's not used is because it has competition from that special ammo category. So printing its own ammo would resolve that. Moving on though, let's talk about rapid fires, which are the last heavy ammo grenade launcher archetype. And really, I think rapid fires are really good where they are. I think rapid fires, you know, they are more of a DPS weapon. You know, they fire 150 rounds per minute, so they come out of that tube faster. They have generally, if I'm not mistaken, generally higher velocity. So let's go ahead and build into the fact that these are DPS weapons, right? And really, what would we change to make them more DPS? I wouldn't change anything. I think the biggest change that could be made is actually a smaller blast radius. Smaller blast radius, number one, would prevent it from being used against ads, which I think in the background here you're watching Carax's Distress, which is a rapid fire, and I'm using it to clear ads. I think that it could be moved out of that ad clear role. It can still clear ads, but it's going to be, you know, reducing that blast radius would help it to kill or be more used on bosses. which I think, again, that's where this archetype should be used. And that's the only change I'd make to rapid fires. I think that their damage is pretty good. I think that their, you know, obviously their reserves are fantastic. Their velocity, their actual magazine size, all that is good. I think the only thing that they really need is just a slightly lower blast radius. That way, again, they're more encouraged to be used on boss-like targets. That way you can still use a grenade launcher on bosses, even though grenade launchers don't strike me as boss killing weapons. You can still do that. So that would put each of our 3 different archetypes of grenade launchers into different categories. The adaptive frame, which we said would change to the aggressive frame, would be for your higher health targets like champions, maybe mini bosses, major stuff like that. Your compressed wave frame, that's still your ad clear, and of course the ability to print more ammo encourages it to, you know, compete with those special ammos. Grenade launchers, and then of course for rapid fires, reducing the blast radius. So they are the boss DPS, whatever you know, machines, whatever you want to call them. But anyways, that being said, those are the heavy grenade launchers. I have dreaded doing this because, yeah, heavy grenade launchers they were in an awkward spot. But I think that the changes that I've suggested here would help them a lot. But let me know what you think. Tell me in the comments, do you like my ideas? Do you not? I want to hear all that. Of course, like today's video, helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content, conversations, debates, discussions, all that good stuff. And do me one more favor, or do me a favor, I should say. Watch the videos you see here on the end screen, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. Guys, I'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.